Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say good morning. I wanted to address one issue when it comes to the work before we get started with the lesson today. Again, for those of you who are turning in the work, it's great. Thank you for turning in the work. But make sure you are turning the work correctly, because the computer only recognizes one number. First thing that you need to remember, enter in whole numbers, only multiples of 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, all the way through. When somebody turns in an answer that says 89.7 because they want to be very specific with their protractor and they're counting the itty-bitty tiny tick marks, that's a waste of time. Do not type in any decimals. If you see that it's a right angle and you measure at 90 degrees, I would hope you know it's not obtuse. And don't write in obtuse, because I need the numerical response. I need the answer to the problem. Yes, it's a right angle. Yes, I recognize and understand that it says right angle. I don't want you to write the word right angle. I want you to write 90 degrees. And again, same thing here. You measured an angle. It's a small angle. It's a cute angle. 20 is the answer. Not 18.8, not 18.9. And whoever's using a 360 degree compass and you don't know how to read it properly, believe me, I can tell. A 20 degree angle is not 340 degrees, and please do not write it cute. Your answers must be in the form of a whole number. Okay, I'm going to get started. Hopefully you can hear me. Let's move on. Here, there's an angle. This is just like yesterday's homework. I have to grab a protractor. I have to use it. Now again, I'm doing this today to readdress the assignment, as well as talk about why you are not doing decimal numbers or partial numbers. I need it to be specific whole numbers and rounded out. So, this is the protractor that matches my line. As you can see, it goes through 130, a little bit more than 130. I know this is an obtuse angle. Obtuse. I am not going to be reading the small numbers because a small number is for an acute angle. Again, we will be addressing those at a different time. But a big number is because it is obtuse. So if I go in here and I'm like, oh, well, it's kind of like 132. Don't give me 132. Your answer in the best choice would be 130. And even if you got it wrong, I would say 135. I will be putting in answers like that when they're kind of sketchy and kind of iffy. But again, make sure you're typing in a whole number that is a multiple of 5. This next angle, again, simple example. Again, looking at the angle. I can look at that angle and say it is acute. That tells me in the process of manipulating my protractor that I have to talk about the small numbers. Why would the small numbers matter? There is no way I could justify this angle being 145 degrees. No way. This is a little tiny mouth open. You're not all the way open. 145 degrees would almost be a straight line. But again, it is not the values that are considered the big values. Do not look at the big values because you know this is an acute angle. And again, talking about an acute angle, I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. It's kind of in between 30 and 40. So when I go to the computer and I type in my work, I'm not going to write 34.9. I'm not going to write 35.2. I'm going to write 35. Right? I can kind of see it off the line a little bit, but I need you guys to just give me a general idea of, yes, I understand how to use a protractor. Yes, I know what these numbers say. And yes, I can identify the acute angle at 35 degrees. Now, the second half of today's homework, I'm working it out. I'm not really sure how you're going to submit the work, but you definitely need it for practice because I will be figuring it out by the time we take the test. You're going to be given a line. Now, I'm going to be telling you, some point I want you to give me a 100 and 150 degree line, let's say. 100, let's 150 degrees. Let me go back to my eraser, make sure I write 150 degrees properly. Let's say we go 150 degrees. Now this is a flat line. This flat line, if I just left it alone, would be 180 degrees. Again, if I just talked about this flat line right here, this would be 180 degrees, but I don't want 180, I want 150. I could talk about this line going down. Now everybody should know what this line going down is. That's the 90 degrees. This is your right angle. We could be talking about 90 degrees, but we're talking about 150 degrees. Now, if I cut this in half, right? Between 0 to 90, halfway is 45. But halfway from 90 to 180 is 135. But I want to get to 150. So again, being very specific, I know I'm more than 135, but I'm not quite at 180. I'm going to go at about right here. And the reason why I say 150 is pretty good is because, again, let's go back and talk about what would happen if I cut it in half again. If I cut this side in half again, this would be 22, knowing that this is half of 45, 22. So then if I cut this in half right here, this would be 135 plus 22, which gives me 157. So I would go past 150. I'm kind of guessing in between there. And it's a guess. You need to understand that 150 is two things. One, it is considered obtuse. It's a big angle, and it's going to be kind of open wide past the halfway point. Now, I did this without a protractor. This is for students who don't happen to have a protractor. We're going to do one more example, and then we'll do a protractor example, and we could be done. Now, here's the line. Again, let's go back to the beginning. If I want you to give me a very standard, I don't know, 60-degree line, 60-degree angle, excuse me. If I wanted you to give me a 60-degree angle, then I have to do one of two things. One, I understand that this line is flat, and it would be at 0. If I draw a line straight up, this is going to be 90 degrees. Now, because 60 and 90 have a relationship, right? They are divisible by 3. I could kind of guess where the 60 degrees are if I cut this into thirds. If I cut it into thirds and they look kind of even, 60 degrees would be right here. But let's say I didn't do that. Let's say I went to the basics. Here's my 0, here's my 90. I cut it in half. Here's my 45. Then my only option and my best option to identify the 60 is to just go a little bit past the 45, and we can call that 60 degrees, and I've created my angle. Now again, you only are drawing the angle. It's giving you the value, it's giving you a baseline, and you're only going to be doing it very simple. Now, let's talk about it in the next example. Now here is a protractor example. Again, if I threw a number out there and I said, let's not do 55 degrees, let's do 115. Yeah, let's do 115. So I got 115 degrees. Gallery view. Here's my protractor. I could totally use a protractor and get 115 degrees. I got my protractor lined up to the line. I see where my angle is in that little tiny dot. And then I have to find 115 degrees. Now, I'm not going to go 115 degrees on the left side because the orange line's on the left side. That would give me an acute angle, and for obvious reasons, this is obtuse. So I have to go from here and start from the 0 going left to right and find 115 degrees about right here and go all the way straight down and meet and match my line. Again, being able to create and understand what is my 115 degree line, angle. 115-degree angle. So again, please make sure, number one, you can identify what an angle looks like: obtuse, acute, straight, right. Number two, you must be able to use a protractor to understand and identify the value of whatever those angles might be as they are given. And now you are using a protractor to create the provided angle that is then given. And again, please understand that you could rewind, you can fast forward, you can ask any questions that you need. Please make sure you chat with me in the classroom. Everybody take care. That is the end of the lesson.